Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey continues to fight release after release of innocent inmates who've had their sentences or convictions overturned. On July 22, 2024, a St. Louis circus judge ordered the immediate release of Christopher Dunn.
Before even being set free after being behind bars for 34 years, Christopher Dunn faces another roadblock. Missouri's Attorney General is trying to stop his release by appealing a judge's decision.
Andrew Bailey filed multiple motions to try and block his release. Dunn, however, made it home on July 30th. Similarly, a Livingston County judge ordered the immediate release of Sandra Hem, but Andrew Bailey filed a motion trying to block it. Hem, who'd been incarcerated for more than 4 decades, was recently declared innocent by Judge Ryan Horsman. Judge Horsman had to threaten to hold Bailey in contempt to secure Hem's release. There are countless others that Missouri attorney generals have tried to keep incarcerated after Missouri judges have ordered release. Most recently, Andrew Bailey has tried to stop the release of Victor Vickers.
I've never had another client like Victor. He is incredibly intelligent. I respect him a lot, and his attitude throughout this has been unwaveringly optimistic.
On Wednesday, August 28th, Judge Drew Davis of DeKalb County ruled that Victor Vickers is being unlawfully incarcerated and that he is entitled to immediate release. After 13 years of fighting for his freedom, Judge Davis ordered the Missouri Department of Corrections to release Vickers from prison immediately, but Andrew Bailey has filed a motion to stop the judge's order.
The most recent chain of events really gave me hope. I believed that this was going to be it. And in fact, we had an order that suggested that he was to be immediately released. We finally had a judge that was willing to see it for what it was.
In 2011, Victor Vickers was charged with first-degree murder for a murder that he did not commit. After being found guilty at trial, he was sentenced to life without parole. After years of fighting to appeal, his conviction and life sentence were recently overturned.
We had an extensive hearing about the motion to find his attorney had been ineffective, and we won. And I have not ever had something as impactful happen in a really long time. This was a client who essentially received a sentence for the rest of his natural life. And this was also the very last line of defense for him, to take this post-conviction route and to cross our fingers and hope that Judge Torrance would do the right thing. And it was an incredible victory, and it was the right thing to happen, but again, the odds are always against you in that boat. So I was thrilled.
Judge John Torrance of Jackson County found that Vickers' attorney was ineffective for failing to call his alibi witness at trial, and Judge Torrance granted Vickers a new trial.
I remember the day he was released, after the case had been reversed, and the crowd of friends and family that welcomed him, and the support that he has had for so long, and just the joy of being reunited with his family for what I believe to be the right reasons.
And I just want to say, man, life without parole, man, I'm back, baby. You know what I'm saying? God is good. He can get you through anything.
Instead of going through a second trial and risking a sentence of life without parole all over again, Vickers entered an Alford plea. An Alford plea is when a person who is charged with a crime does not admit any guilt and may even assert that he is innocent. An Alford plea allows a defendant to accept a conviction rather than taking the risk of trial and being subjected to an extremely lengthy sentence for a more serious charge.
Trying the case, anything can happen. Anything can happen. He's seen it firsthand. He lived it. He went to prison. He had a judge tell him, "You are never getting out again." I know that the struggle has been real ever since then, but I also recognize how impossible it would be for me to be able to move on just as his friend, his colleague, to see him go back to prison indefinitely. Now that I know his friends, his family, his mother, I just think that for everyone's benefit, we wanted to be able to see him home. So it made a lot of sense to recognize the risk involved in going to trial. We knew that they were frothing at the mouth to try him again. And this was really, I think, overall a smart and responsible decision to just keep keep a light at the end of the tunnel.
In Vickers' Alford plea, he was sentenced to 15 years on reduced charges of voluntary manslaughter. In Missouri, a typical 15-year sentence carries a 12-year prison term and a 3-year parole term. In the sentencing judgment dated April 14, 2022, Judge Torrance ordered that Vickers receive 3,767 days of jail time credit toward his sentence, which is about 10.5 years. I
just had to believe that the judge's order would be respected and that the Department of Corrections would honor that, and the hard part would have been resolved. And that has not turned out to be the truth. Judge Torrance was in charge of determining what the sentence should be. He was well aware of all of the time that Victor had already spent incarcerated because of this case, and he wanted to ensure that he was given credit, that that time was not for nothing. And he was very specific in ordering that in his judgment, that Victor be credited for every solitary night he spent incarcerated because of this situation. We got it down to the number. And he was sentenced with the expectation that I think everyone believed the time Victor had already given to this case would have satisfied the ultimate sentence.
With the credit from Judge Torrance, Vickers should have been released from prison on December 20, 2023. The Missouri Department of Corrections, however, has somehow miscalculated a release date of November 27, 2026. On Wednesday, August 28, 2024, Judge Davis of DeKalb County ruled that Vickers is being unlawfully incarcerated and he is entitled to immediate release. In reaction to the judge's order, prison officials removed Vickers from general population, placed him in a suicide cell in the hole with no sheets, no pillow or blanket, just a mattress on a hard concrete floor. Prison officials told him that he had to be there only until the next morning when they would release him at 9 a.m. But the very next day,
he was within, 24 hours, 12 hours even, of release when they pumped the brakes. And now we are back at it, back in litigation. He continues to spend day after day waiting for someone to do the right thing. The resistance to this is unclear. I cannot figure out what's in it for the Attorney General's office. What is in it for the state to continue to hold someone who has so clearly satisfied the sentence plus some? And we not only have seen this in Victor's case, but we've seen it repeatedly at the hands of the AG, interfering in people's freedom. I don't know what the motivation is. I don't know if this is campaign season. I don't know if this is a political move. I can't imagine any citizen or any voter somehow finding support in someone who unlawfully wants people to remain incarcerated when the path for them to be released has been cleared, and yet they stand in the way anyway.
Before Vickers ever got a chance to walk out to see his freedom, Attorney General Andrew Bailey and his office filed a motion to fight Vickers' release. The Attorney General filed a writ of prohibition in the Court of Appeals, asking that Judge Davis not be allowed to release Vickers. Andrew Bailey's actions are completely inappropriate in this case.
With every day that passes, there is a human being who is being kept from their life, their future, their family, and there doesn't appear to be any good faith basis for that other than just because they can, they have.
Judge Torrance ordered that Vickers receive time credit that would set him free on December 20, 2023. And Judge Davis agreed with Judge Torrance and attempted to enforce Judge Torrance's order by ruling that Mr. Vickers should be released immediately. The Attorney General is fighting his release.
You never know which filing is going to stick. You never know which motion is going to work. And I'm always willing to try. But this is the one, and we filed dozens of things and to no end. However, I'm really grateful that this one stuck. I don't regret taking the time to do it, even in the wilderness of Alaska. We got it filed. I got an email the following week from Judge Davis. who I've never met, never appeared in front of, who reached out to me and the attorney for the Attorney General's office, who was handling this matter within their office internally, basically asking us if someone were to honor this credit and give him the time that Judge Torrance intended for him to have, would that result in his ability to be immediately released from Department of Corrections? My response clearly was yes, that is what we've been trying to have happen from the inception of Victor's return to prison. And the Attorney General's response was a little lengthier, but it also conceded that had that time been counted, he should be at a minimum eligible for parole. And I think that there was some resistance in having to admit that. However, the truth was that that is what should have happened. So we had a concession at that stage from the AG's office that Victor would be immediately eligible for parole and therefore immediately eligible for release. Judge Davis got our feedback and he issued an order. And that was what we've been waiting for. It went so far as for the prison to actually begin the process of releasing Victor, telling him it was going to happen, letting Laverne know, calling her and telling her it felt very similar to the same call that I made to Laverne when we won his post-conviction hearing and were given the opportunity to undo this thing that had happened. But almost immediately, the AG's position changed, reversed course, and then we saw a litany of motion after request after exhibit trying to stop the very thing that they had just earlier informally agreed to via email with the court.
The Missouri Court of Appeals set a 60-day briefing schedule that will decide the issue after briefs have been filed by both parties. But for now, although Judge Davis has ordered his immediate release and ruled that Vickers has already been illegally incarcerated for more than 9 months past his expected release date, Vickers remains languishing in prison pending further litigation.
Victor's attitude in this process has been remarkable, and he's the one sleeping in the prison every night.
Molly Hastings, the best lawyer in Kansas City. If you don't know about her, you better go get her. She the best in Kansas City.
The rest of us are outraged. The rest of us are furious. The rest of us are just appalled that this somehow continues to happen. But Victor is rising to the occasion every day until the right thing happens. I don't know how he does it, truthfully, but I'm grateful that he can, because I think that is his persistence and his optimism is really, I think, what got us here in the first place.
Stay tuned for further coverage of his release.